everyone, I'm Crisia from Genially. I'm here with three amazing professionals. Marino Lalay, co-founder of Lavender Dragon, Amadeus Lalay, co-founder of Lavender Dragon, and Marco Esther, founder of the Players NIL program. So thank you so much for being here. I'm actually dying to see how you create amazing programs with Genially, amazing activities with Genially. So, Mari, how can you take? Would you like to take the microphone right now?
Sure, certainly. So thank you for joining us, everyone. And I wanted to start off by introducing Mark, who's one of our clients. And also, we're big fans of the work that Mark does. And Mark works with student athletes in the United States primarily to help educate them on name, image, and likeness. So that's what the NIL stands for, if you're not familiar with that. And we met Mark a few years ago. He was looking for something to make his courses come to life. So, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit more about the Players NIL, what you were looking for, and how these activities really appealed to your audience?
Thank you, Mary and Amadeus, and Christia, thank you for the opportunity. I'm excited to share our journey and the great work that Mary and Amadeus have done at Lavender Dragon. So in July of 2021, some legislative changes happened in the United States, allowing student athletes to monetize their personal brands. We refer to that as name, image, and likeness, as Mary said. It is a new market, a newly created opportunity, one that almost has no precedent, no guidelines, no guardrails. And so one of the things that we thought that was really going to be important for young people and for their coaches and administrators was education. Education around what it takes to build a brand, education around the pitfalls of this, the legal guidance, the compliance guidance, life skills that we thought that young people should take advantage of, and how essentially this name, image, and likeness platform can be a transformative situation for many people for many years to come, not just the years that they're in college. So we were very fortunate to meet Mary and Amadeus and thank them for their contributions.
So, Mark, why don't you talk a little bit about, given that the audience is primarily student athletes, why you wanted to have some more interactive, engaging kind of content? We've got the regular videos, we've got some animated videos, we have things for them to read, but one of the things that you and your team kept asking for is, how do we make this more engaging? How do we really help drive that point home? So what was your thought behind that?
Well, I think as a parent of five children, I understand the attention span, right? And I understand the limitations of that attention span. And I think that in 2021, coming out of that early stage of COVID, many of our student athletes in high school and at the university level had been just inundated with remote learning, online learning, Zoom meetings, if you will, Teams meetings, whatever the platform is that their school was supplying. And I just thought that they would probably resist more education in that format. And although what we're teaching, I believe, is very important and perhaps the best life skills course they're ever going to take, we still needed participation. And we wanted to make sure that we were successful. And success to us was that a student would begin the process and complete the process and not fade off in between. And so with your help, we asked for guidance around making it more engaging, making it more interesting. And our success rate of having student athletes complete the course and not drop off was our goal.
That's fantastic. And so, not to put you on the spot, but have you received any student feedback about how your courses are different or how they compare to other courses? And do you think any of that has to do with the interactivity that's been built in?
I don't think there's any question. There's no one doing what we do in this space. And as I talk to people and explain to them the individual lessons, the interactive, the digital animation, I know probably from a technical standpoint, we don't want to call them cartoons, but that is a phrase that people can relate to. Look, we all have been in meetings with, very static presentations. In the old days, it was, PowerPoint. Perhaps it was a Zoom meeting with a PDF. To have something that is actually interesting, entertaining, and educational all at the same time was a concept that they were going to. But quite honestly, until we met you, Mary, and Amadeus, and your work with Genially, we didn't know how to get there. And so you really filled in the blanks on telling that story.
That's fantastic. So before we move into the demonstration, is there anything else, Mark, that you would like to talk about in terms of Players NIL, students, power of interactivity, anything like that?
Well, I think, like almost every entrepreneur probably, I like to tell my story because I think I can relate to people. I think if I'm in a room or even on Zoom to some degree, that, given my enthusiasm, given my knowledge, given my experience, I feel like I'm pretty good at holding a room and holding the attention span of the people I'm talking to. The problem with that is it can't scale. And so you can only have so many Zoom meetings. You can only have so many in-person meetings. And so now we use those as kickoffs and we use those as measuring sticks along the way. But we use your course, the course that you developed for us, as a day-to-day contact point. And I think that for those of you who think that you have something to share, that you have great ideas, that you're trying to tell a story, that you're trying to grow an audience, this is a great way to scale it. And I think that's what's proven to be true in our situation.
No, that's fantastic. So, Krista, do you have any questions for any of us before we move over to Amadeus and his demonstration?
No, actually, I'm dying to see the demonstration.
Well, please don't die on us, but I'm glad you want to see the demonstration. So we created several interactions for the Players NIL program using Genially, and some of them were straight templated, like right out of the box. We didn't make any changes to them other than changing the questions. And then we also did some really cool, very customized work. And so that's what Amadeus is going to show today is the beginnings of the Players NIL board game. Did I get that right,
Yep, you got it right.
All right.
Let me share this. Okay, can everyone see that all right?
Yes.
Wonderful. So the Players NIL board game, we wanted a fun way to help give, questions, usual kind of multiple choice, true or false, but we wanted to have a little bit more fun to them than just, hey, answer these questions about the Players NIL. And we thought, what better way to explain all of these concepts than to have aliens that have studied Earth culture and have looked at it and thought, hey, I want to have what the athletes have. So their perspective is much like the players, brand new and just trying to get into the situation. So with that being said, we'll come over here and we will start on our Players NIL board game here with our two little alien chums. And each of these is one of the main objectives from one of the main pillars of the Players NIL that they are moving towards. So each of these little squares here, we'll click on our buddies and we go up to what the first question is. So in this case, name, image, likeness. So we see they got that correct. And they're going to move across the board. And so they'll come up here all the way to the very end. Eventually, I'll just show a couple of squares to show a little bit of what we've done. Square number 2, now we have just a true false. And once we finish up here, you'll see them move up through the first part of the board game. And this looks really in-depth and very hard to do. With Genially, it's actually really easy to create, especially if you have some of the assets already there. So let's take a little bit of a look in the back end and show how we accomplished all of this. So we'll come back over here.
So oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to mention that this first image, the map, that is a custom graphic that Christian, who is also part of our team, created for this project. So this graphic was not built in Genially. So if anybody's like, how do I build that in Genially? Just know that we brought in an outside image.
Thank you. Yes, definitely had great help with some of the graphics for a lot of these. So with this, it is, a fair number of slides here. Our first one here, just a very simple click button to go through. On the game board, what we did was we used mostly interactive elements, and I would say that was probably the majority of things we used, whether it's a interactive shape that takes them to the next slide, or one of these little buttons. Those are primarily what we use to create this. Each square is just a button that takes you forward to a question. The questions, and you can set these up however you want. There are some really nice interactive questions you could use, but for what we wanted to use, we went with the buttons. And each of these is actually linked to either go to the correct page or incorrect page, depending on what the answer should be. But that lets you be highly customizable in what you're trying to accomplish. These, as you saw, just kind of fade in. You can use those however you want. And then we just continue on the board. Each of these board states, really all we had to do was reinsert our little friends here to where they're going to go. And you could add more animations or something that you wanted to with that. We just didn't want to overwhelm, since it was already a decently long game with animations on every single slide.
And this is a prototype. So if you go to the Players NIL right now, you will not see this yet, but we wanted to showcase like the power of this game.
So, and it has a lot of options in terms of what you could do. You know, if you're making this for yourself, you could make, if you wanted to have animated GIFs or something that's part of your map, you could have that to help feel a little bit more, you know, vibrant as the map image or something like that. But very simple to make once you knew what you're doing, but provides a really good experience for the learners, because who doesn't like moving, you know, through the map instead of just reading down a list of text of what they're doing or answering a bunch of multiple choice questions.
So Amadeus, could you actually demonstrate how, when you click on the button, it takes you to a different slide?
Sure. So we'll come over here. So when we look at this and we get the question, if we see it on the back end, this question is actually set to this goes to page 5, which is incorrect. This goes to page 5, which is incorrect, and this goes to page 4, which is correct. So here we'll click on this one. They won't know. To them, this is just telling them, you know, false or correct. But for us on the back end, we know, oh, okay, this is actually where it's sending them. But for them, it's just going to feel like, oh, well, feedback just varies depending on if I'm right or not. But they are actually going to a couple different slides.
And could you actually show how you set that up?
Sure. So with that, we came over here to the interactive elements, and we used this little button right here, and you're going to link that to go to page. You could also, in theory, use it to link to a window or text box in this screen that's either the correct or incorrect. We found it was easier and much more granular to control when we had it go to a page instead of just show a tooltip. So you hit go to page. You just need to make sure you're selecting the correct one, especially when you have a lot of questions. You want to make sure that your quizzes are lined up. In this case, though, you'd have the incorrect. You can change the color, the size, if it has any animations, and that'll control your kind of back end. Again, if you wanted to, you could put something like this multiple choice in here, but that loses a little bit of the sleekness for what we were going for. So that's why we use the buttons over the prefabricated. But either one is a usable, valid option.
So Amadeus, suppose somebody wanted to add another slide to the game. How would they do that?
So if they're going to add another slide, or if they wanted to add some more questions, they'd come over here to the back end on pages. They'd hit add page. Probably just use a blank one, or if it was another version of the map, you would want to probably keep using that slide to make sure you're not moving images around or moving pieces around. And then you just need to make sure, okay, hey, so we're going to copy this game board right here. So we're going to go, all right, this needs to come over here for the next piece, and these guys need to come over here as well. And then we'll have to set up, triggers. Okay, so this, instead of going to page 4, should go to the correct pages. So when you're adding one page, especially if it's all interconnected and something like this, probably going to need to add a couple of them just to keep the chain rolling and to make sure everything works. But very simple, add page or duplicate page or copy them that way. A couple different options to help add more pages.
All right. And I believe that there's a video in here, correct?
Let me double check. I think that might be in the different release version of this that we have.
Okay. So you can also add, where I was going with this is you can also add videos. So for example, if we wanted to add an introductory video, you can just link to a small video that you've created, or you can
Mhm.
also link to an external site like YouTube for a video.
Yes. So that is, you come over here to insert, move over to video. If you have it via link, you would choose the link, and otherwise it will pull it directly from a Google Drive if you let it have access to those. So there is some nice integration there, letting you back up what videos you want to use.
So the next thing is you want to preview and make sure that your work works. So Amadeus, can you show them how they can preview their creation?
Yeah, so that is exactly what I was presenting this in. So if you come up to the right here and hit present, that puts you into how others will see your video once they are actually taking it. So in this case, this is where we did our little demo here. And you can check and kind of go through and make sure everything's working. You're going to catch a lot of bugs, or you probably will, hopefully, the first few times around as you're making this, making sure all your pages are linked and everything else works. Nice thing is you can have both the demo open along with the pages, so you can immediately see, oh, hey, that's not working like it's supposed to. If one of these buttons wasn't working, you can immediately go and fix that. And then this also gives you some control of page by page. And this right here is a very nice button. It lets you see all of the interactive elements you currently have just for a quick moment, which is great to see if you accidentally forgot something or if you had clicked a button too many times.
Excellent. And what if you want to share this with the public? How do you do that?
So great question. So if you wanted to share this, you come up right next to the present button and you have share. So you just need to then decide, is this going to be shared as like a link to it on, say, a post on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that? Is it inserted as an iframe or a script? And this is more if you're trying to share it in like a learning management platform or something similar. It does have ones for social media, and just general, if you're sharing it with, say, Microsoft Teams or Google Classrooms, they've got some integration there as well.
Excellent. So one other question for you. What if I wanted to edit either my correct or incorrect feedback and say replace it with an animated GIF of somebody like doing thumbs up or thumbs down? How would I do that?
So to do that, you would just need to come over here to wherever your feedback is. Right now we have text boxes, so you would need to come in and either upload an image that is, either right here built into Genially. They do have a lot of images. So say we wanted the thumbs up, you could come and use this instead, and you would just move this text over, size this up a little bit, and you could say correct. Yeah, thumbs up now. And so now instead of a text, they'll get that, and we would just move that out of the way. Now, obviously, we want to keep that text, so we won't keep that there, but that would be very simple how. Now, and this is if you wanted your own images, like here we have our brand images, that's part of it. You could upload new images similarly from your device, from Google Drive, from a link, and they do have a very large selection of GIFs and other images already built in that you can use.
Excellent.
I have a question. For example,
Yes.
do you actually ask your clients before if they would like to collect data or see the responses for the multiple choice questions or quizzes?
Yes, so we do, when we're designing a lot of the interactives, that's one of the first questions we asked is what needs to, is it important that you track? Do these need to be tracked? Do you need to know what they're saying? Or are we more making sure that they are getting through the experience? So that is something you can kind of decide and do. A lot of times it is a bit harder to track when you're hosting on something like a learning management platform like Thinkific or something else. They can have some issues tracking outside sources.
Okay.
So with like Genially, you could set it up more to be, they have to get it correct to get to the end of the game. Like if they're getting the incorrect choices, it might send them back to retry it. And that's one way you can use it to know that they're getting through, and correctly answering is, okay, did you get to the end of this? That means you had to have answered everything correctly.
And additionally,
Go
sorry to cut you off. Additionally, if you have the paid version of Genially, you can also export as a SCORM package. to put into a corporate LMS. If you're using an LMS that is designed for mostly independent course creators, we primarily use Thinkific. They do not support SCORM files, but they do support HTML5. So you lose the tracking in some LMSs. And I think that's where Amadeus was going for.
Mhm.
If you share the link, though, if you click on that little bar up at the top that is kind of looks like a bar graph, then you can also track some information or data on the results. So let's say I share it on a LinkedIn post. I can get data from who's clicking on it and who's using it by clicking on the data sharing. So it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, depending on how the client would like to measure the success of
Mhm.
the training.
Mhm.
Wonderful. It's an amazing game.
Thank you.
I have to say.
So there's a few other things that we also created in here for Players NIL. I kind of touched on some of those on the webinar back in April, but we did an interactive timeline. So
Yeah.
that was really a powerful one as well. One of the key tenets, and Mark, please jump in and correct me if I get this wrong, is about philanthropy and giving back. And in that course on philanthropy, there's a whole section on the history of philanthropy and how important philanthropy is. So Amadeus also built this timeline that helps students get a grasp of like, oh my goodness, philanthropy and charitable acts have been happening for a very, very long time. So we've got this as well. And that was started with a template and then improved with the content that Mark's subject matter experts provided us.
And this one is just a much simpler one page, but each of these little timeline blips has the information as you're going down the timeline to go along with the pictures and everything else in it. So it was very informative and more fun than just reading, down a list of, oh, yeah, this happened in so-and-so. So it feels a lot more engaging to go to, more like you're at an actual museum learning about something.
Wow.
And again, it's the same principles that Amadeus showed earlier. We source the images and replace those in the timeline. We have the information so you can actually click on some of the pictures and see more information. When you click on the plus sign, you saw that little pop-up, which would either be a tool tip for those of you that are trying to build this at home, or if it's a lot of information, you might show it as a window. So it just depends on the volume of content that you're trying to put in. One of the suggestions that we have is, as you're thinking about this, thinking about your learner, oftentimes they're going to be on a smartphone. So you don't want it to be a wall of text. You want it to be the most important information, but you don't want it to fill up the entire page.
And you also want to make sure it's easy to differentiate where interactive spots are. Because if you bunch things up too tight, it might look fine on a computer. It can be very hard for someone to try and, hit those buttons and not go, everything's popping up on me.
Yeah, in terms of accessibility, I believe that it works as well. It helps. Helps a lot.
So Amadeus, one last thing while we're in here.
Sure.
You want to show them how easy it is to change $14.99 to $17.9 and then the 6 is on the bottom line?
Yeah, so here, we'll very easily fix that with a simple slide over of the text box.
So again, those are the things that you want to look for, as Amadeus was saying earlier, in terms of previewing, because when you're in the middle of building, sometimes you'll miss those little things. You also have a full control palette, just like you would in word processing software, whether it's Microsoft Word or Google Docs, that allows you to change your font color, change your font size. It's very, very simple and intuitive.
And then they do have accessibility options built in, which is very, very nice. Just in case you have to add those.
Love it.
So, Mark, Krista, Amadeus, is there anything else you would like us to show or talk about?
Well, first of all, thank you for explaining how you did it.
Yeah, normally we don't show our clients how the magic happens behind the scenes, but I'm glad you were able to see that.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm equating it to going to a fine restaurant, and you order your meal and your sides just the way you want them, and the waitress comes out and presents it to you, and you say, perfect. You have no idea what happened in the back room, all the work and all the prep work. So this is a fine meal being served at an excellent restaurant with incredible preparation in the back room. So thank you for sharing.
Welcome. Glad you enjoyed it.
I have a question from your client's perspective. How has been the results? How your audience have the receptivity? How the experience has been?
Yeah, I think, Chrissy, it's been very well received. I believe that, we are doing something way different and more dynamic than anyone else. In some cases, it's a little bit of a challenge to educate people about that,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
To educate them that this is different and to show them. And I think, one of the things that Mary and Amadeus have helped us with is some of the marketing pieces to show clips and show examples to demonstrate and differentiate ourselves from a static PowerPoint Zoom meeting that the kids don't want to participate in. So, we have this great restaurant, right? We have this amazing meal. We need a great marquee on the front to draw people in. And I would say that's the marketing challenge. But from a user experience standpoint, it's been excellent.
That they maintain them like motivated to get the reward and to consume that content.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
and again, Mark is a phenomenal use case, for lack of a better term. I don't think of Mark as a use case, but for the purposes of this, for the purposes of this webinar, because of his audience, we have another client that works in manufacturing, and we've created Geniallys for them to demonstrate different elements on the equipment that they manufacture. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to share that because of non-disclosure agreements, but they use that at trade shows and stuff. And much as Mark was saying, it really differentiates them, because normally when you're at a trade show, you're people are just like, oh, come into my booth, here's some candy, here's my sales brochure, why don't you go buy this? But for this company, they're able to go, okay, we can't put our equipment here on this trade show floor because it's huge. However, we have an image of it, and then we have this interactive activity where you can go in and push these buttons, and much like the timeline, learn about this feature and this feature and this feature. And so they're using it, I think, in a very unique way as a way to showcase their product. Mark is using it in a very unique way to show students that, what, online learning doesn't have to be a boring lecture. It's not just a video with, 5 pages of PDF following it. We're really bringing you into into the environment, into the activity, and helping you remember things, because if it's fun, you're going to go back. It's like, oh, this isn't a quiz. This isn't a test. This is a game. Okay, I'm going to keep doing it until I get the answer right, because I'm having fun doing it.
Totally. I know, and as Mark said, like doing things differently,
Mm-hmm.
like change the way like, we teach.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for this demonstration. It was very interesting, and actually to see how you create this, to see how is your communication with your client, how you make these things alive. And yeah, actually this project is amazing.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Well, glad everyone liked it.
I learned something today.
Well, that's always good when the person who works for the company whose software we're using learns something.
In terms
That's
of
always a plus.
In terms of gamification, I'm sure that you know more than me. You are the professionals here. I'm more in the marketing side.
Fantastic. So, Mark, any final words before we wrap this up?
No, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to share what we've done. And to those of you out there listening and watching this, Mary and Amadeus do an amazing job at Lavender Dragon. And I'm thankful for their contributions to our company and what we're doing. And Chrissia, thank you for making great software that allowed them to cook a gourmet Michelin restaurant meal.
Oh, that's so kind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, for being here with us today and collaborate here today and send all your experience, share your experience with us. Thank you, Mary and Amadeus, for this amazing demonstration and work. I'm dying to see all the comments, all the people that they are really interested. That our community, they really wants to know how other professionals use Genially, how other professionals actually accomplish the objective that the client have. And sometimes it's very difficult to achieve it, but you make it so simple.
Well, thank you.
Hey, that's what we try. I've always thought things, if you can teach them simply, people will be able to simply learn them.
Yeah.
I like that.
Code. Love it. Thank you very much, guys. And thank you all the people who are watching us right now. See you in another webinar, another how-to, maybe with Lavender Dragon as well. Have a nice day.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.